Good afternoon everybody, welcome to part 2 of my waterproofing video. So, the clothes have been sat on here now for 2.5, nearly 3 days. Everything's all nice and dry. If you haven't seen the first video, you need to go back and watch it because you won't have a clue what's going on if you don't. But basically we've treated these in a waterproofing different ways through the washing machine, and I left them to dry. We're now going to move on to stage 2 of my waterproofing, but we'll check and see just how waterproof they are first, but we're going to do that outside. Before we go any further, time for the disclaimer. All the opinions in this video are mine. All the products that are used, I buy them. I do not get any sponsorship, I do not get any kind of gratuity or anything from anybody. It's all off my own back. So I'm not sponsored by no one. It's all my own opinion and my own thoughts. If I rubbish a product, that's my opinion. Yours could be very different, and the company's is obviously going to be very different. I only see it as I say it as I see it. So needed to get that out of the way first. But anyhow, we'll move this stuff outside and we'll do a little bit of a water test on it just to see how water resistant any of the stuff is. Particularly the black top, because that's never been waterproof before. So I want to see what kind of effect we've had on that. Right, so we've moved outside. I've got a jug of water in my hand. So the first thing we'll to check, as it's on the top, is the trousers. And we'll drop a little bit of water on there. And yeah, that's pretty beaded up pretty well, as you can see. Now I'll leave that to puddle there, just to see if it soaks in. But as you can see, we've got some beading. Drop a bit on this side as well. Definitely appears to be waterproof. I mean, if we drop it down the side there, look, it's running straight off. And we'll try it there as well. I would say that's pretty waterproof. Now we'll give that a shake off and we'll see if we've actually wetted it anywhere, if any soaked in. As you can see, it has actually soaked in. So like I said before, my opinion of a net wax, it doesn't fully waterproof, but then this is not waterproof clothing, and when you actually read it, although it's advertised as a waterproofer, it says it is for waterproofing waterproof clothing, and this isn't. So as you can see, it did have some good beading, good waterproof qualities, but the water has soaked in and this is now wet, at least in places. And where the water puddled there, look, it's very wet. So anyhow, we'll take that off. Well, we won't take it off, we'll leave it there. We'll grab the black top. Now as I said, this black top has never ever been waterproofed. The fox trousers and the green fleece down there have been waterproofed many times in the past. This is the first time for the black top, so we'll see what happens if we put a bit of water on this. And as you can see, if you saw the first video, it soaked straight in. And again, that's a lot better than it was. In fact, that's pretty good. It has wetted it, as you see. Eventually it will soak in, but as water resistant, so for want of a better word, shower proof, that works. But anyhow, we're now going to move on to the next stage, and for that I'm afraid I need it to be dry, so I'm going to have to stop the video because I've got to let those bits that I've done dry off. But anyhow, the stuff we're going to be using is this. Now, if you're a carp angler in the UK, this is pretty much the industry standard. Fabseal Gold. We use it for absolutely everything. Mainly our bivvies. Now, if you wonder what a bivvy is, if you're not a carp angler, think of a tent with built-in poles that's a lot stronger than a normal tent, and oval sort of shaped. Usually round or oval shaped, whereas tents tend to be triangular with an apex roof. A bivvy tends to have a dome-shaped roof, and the poles are built in, and it's a lot more rigid and a lot more heavy. When you buy it, it's normally made out of an Oxford nylon. It's treated with a waterproofer, and over time UV light, weather, all takes its toll on the waterproofing, and you have to re-waterproof it. Fabseal Gold is pretty much the industry standard. It's what everybody uses. The only thing is, we never ever buy it as an aerosol can. Well, I don't. It's way too expensive. I normally buy it in a 1 litre tin, tip it into a container and apply with a paintbrush. There's two reasons for that. Primarily, when you're doing a great big bivvy, you'd probably need about 10 cans of it like this. It'd just be prohibitively expensive. But the main reason is because you apply it with a brush, you can actually rub it into the actual fibres. You can rub it in with the paintbrush, so you really get it in there. So the waterproofing is much, much better. Again, it's a completely different product to the Nick Wax. Clues in the name. Nick Wax is a wax-based product. This is a silicone-based product. The Nick Wax you apply when the garments or clothing or cover, whatever you want to do, is wet. This must be applied when it's dry. It also has to be left to dry. So that's the two biggest differences. Whether they mix, I'm sure they will, because they're dried on. You shouldn't have a problem, but we're going to find out if there is a reaction between the two. I've never actually done it, but we're going to find out. Quick little story. A friend of mine has just come home, well, back in September. He went to France for a week, and he ended up, his fishing peg that he was fishing was under a tree. Now, when you go to France, you're sort of stuck with what you draw on the day kind of thing, and you're in it for a week. If other pegs are available, you can move, but you normally end up stuck there for a while, and he opted to spend the whole week. And he was fishing under a tree, and his tree was dropping some sort of pollen and sap stuff all over his overwrap. Now, an overwrap on a bivvy is the same sort of thing as a fly sheet on a tent. It's the outer part that goes over the actual main bivvy. And he said by the end of the week it was absolutely filthy. It was covered in sap, and also the birds in the tree, they'd done what birds do, and it was also covered in bird's muck. Now, a new overwrap for his particular bivvy was £250. So he talked to me, because it's somebody I meet down the lake, and he done pretty much what we did in video 1. He washed the overwrap in the washing machine, washed it in soap, and then treated it with the Nick Wax. But he went one stage further. When he got it out and it was all spotlessly clean, he then put his bivvy up in the garden, put the overwrap on, and then treated it with Fabseal over the top. And he says it looks brand new. Now, another thing I need to mention about waterproofing before we do anything else. You're not going to get it with this type of garment, but if you're doing actual waterproof clothing, which is what the stuff's designed for, particularly Oxford nylon, which is what a bivvy cover's made out of, you will get a wrinkling effect with any type of waterproofer, whether it be wax or the silicone. I actually think it's worse with the silicone stuff, but you do still get it with the wax stuff as well. You'll get like a wrinkling effect. So you've got to make sure that you're happy with that before you go treating anything. If it's a particularly expensive bit of clothing, I would recommend that you experiment somewhere obscure, like on a pair of trousers. Do it in a crutch. Do it down there where no one's going to see it. Treat it, leave it for a week. If it's a upper garment like this, do it under the armpit, treat it, leave it for a week, have a look what it looks like. If you're then happy, then you can proceed. If you're not happy how it looks like, well, it's a case of, do you want it to be waterproof or do you want it to look good? You've got to make that choice. But something to be aware of, you can ruin the appearance of clothing by waterproofing it. And it's all down to whether looks or functionality is more important to you. But anyhow, I'm going to take this off here now, leave the trousers to dry for 10 minutes or so out here, and then I'm going to give it a spray with this, so we'll come back and we'll give it a coat with that stuff. Right, well, we've got the Fabsil. I've moved it back a little bit because the actual gazebo's dripping water, but this is primarily the dry side. We'll give this a quick shake. I've got no idea the best way to do this, but I'm just gonna spray it on. And hopefully it's not going to react with the other stuff. Try and get it as even as I can. And then we'll do the top part here. Not too worried about the top half so much, it's the trouser part that I want to get. Because when you're wearing a coat and it's a waterproof coat, the water beads off, runs down, and your legs get soaking wet. And I rarely wear waterproof trousers. I'm not a fan of them. You end up getting too hot and too sweaty in the damn things. Yeah, not a lot of that left. I think I've used... Christ, I reckon I've used a third of it already, just on that. But we'll leave that for a bit now to dry, and then we'll flip it over and we'll do the other side. Right, well, I've just read the instructions and it says if fine droplets form, you've got to rub them in. Well, I don't know if the camera's never going to see it, but I can see it. There is like a fine mist of droplets all over it. So I've got a clean cloth, and hopefully the camera can see that, but where I've wiped, it's wiping them off and sort of rubbing them in a little bit, which is what we want to do. We want it to get into the fabric rather than sit on it. So we'll just gently wipe that all over like that, and then do the same down the length like that. And hopefully, I hope the camera can see that, because that's quite pronounced from this angle. You can see where I've just wiped it there, look. Do the same there. Really hoping the camera can see that. I can see it quite clearly, so hopefully the camera can. But there we go. I've wiped that all in now. So we'll leave that to dry, like I said before, and then we'll flip it over and we'll do the other side. And hopefully we'll have got it all in. Right folks, I've flipped it over. I've left it for about 15 minutes or so. It's far from dry, but it's dry enough to flip over. And we're going to do this side now. Pretty much exactly the same as before. Just spray the stuff on evenly like so. Bit of a breeze blowing. You do need to do this outdoors, by the way, because this stuff has got quite an aroma to it, and it's not exactly a nice smell. It is a bit of a chemically smell. Even here I can smell it quite clearly. I'll tell you what, it's easier to put on with a tin as well and a brush. This is hard work, but this is what we've got, so this is what we're going to use. Not too worried about doing the top bit because that's covered by a coat. That's this bottom part that I want to treat, because like I said, when you're wearing a coat and it rains, so the water runs down onto your trousers, especially if it's a waterproof jacket, which all of mine are because they've all been treated like this. Right, got to swap hands very quickly, just so I can do this side. Just so it sprays it from this angle, and that can's already running out. Yeah, not a lot left in there. Right, what we'll do, we'll leave that for 5 minutes or so, and then I'll rub it in with a cloth exactly the same as I did the other side. So it's been about 5 minutes. I'm going to do the same as I did before, clean cloth, and just try and get this bubbling effect off. I mean, that could well be being caused by the nick wax that's already treated, so it's stopping this stuff from penetrating so well. You wouldn't know unless you used it on something that's untreated. But you can still see the watermark there from when I done it, put water on it earlier. It hasn't dried. But this will be good enough for what I want. And then the same thing, we'll just get down here with it. We're just trying to give it a chance, get it to soak in, rather than sit on the surface and evaporate. But that'll probably do. So I'll do the same as before now. I'll leave this for about 20 minutes. And then we'll get some of the other bits on and we'll just use the rest of the can up then. We won't do all of them, but we'll do some of it. But, yep, that don't look too bad. Looks alright to me. Oh, another use for Fab Seal Gold. I should really get paid for doing this. But anyhow, Fab Seal Gold. Another use for it. Vintage car market. If you've got a vinyl roof on a vehicle, give it a treatment with that stuff. I would suggest the brush on rather than the aerosol, because the aerosol is going to blow about in the wind and it's going to get on things you don't want it to get on. Whereas if you've got some in a little tin, brush it in. I've not actually done it because I don't have a vintage car, but apparently it's fantastic on a vinyl roof. Brings it up, makes it look nice, and really does protect it and makes it last for many years apparently. That's only hearsay and what I've heard. I don't actually know this, but people do rave about it who have got a vintage car. They say it's the best thing ever. So, yep, worth remembering. Anyhow, we're going to leave that to dry now for another 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. And then we'll get the fleece and the black top and we'll use the rest of the spray up on those. I'll just lay them over the top and use the rest of the can up on them. So it's been a good 20 minutes, half hour since I last sprayed it. I'm going to move the other stuff up now, lay them over the top of this. I'm not worried about it sticking to it or whatever. And I'm going to give the backs of the black jacket and the fleece a quick spray as well, use the last of the spray up. Well, we're going to do the black one first because this is the one that hasn't had any treatment on it, and although it will rarely ever get used outside, I could get caught with it on, so I'm going to give it a quick treatment. Good tip, by the way, if you're doing a coat. When you come to do the hood, get a balloon, blow the balloon up, put it in the hood. You get the right shape then, rather than leaving it flat like this, because there's going to be bits that you've missed. But I'm not too worried about that. This is a bodge at best. I'm literally just using the stuff up. Oh, and if you're low on stuff, like I am, always best to do the backs, because human beings naturally sort of crouch forward when they stand, so it's your back that will always get wetter than your front. So if you're running out of stuff like this, it's the back you want to concentrate on. Incidentally, for cleaning this stuff, if you get it on things or you've used it with a brush in a tin, white spirit or meths takes it straight off. But anyhow, that's just about empty. We'll do the same with that. We'll leave that for a minute and then rub it in, and then we'll use the last of it on the hood of the fleece. So here we are, I've got the hood of the fleece there. This is virtually empty now, but I might as well use what's left. Flip that over like that. Like I said, a balloon, much easier. Yeah, this is pretty much dead. But we might as well use what's actually left in there. Get out what we can out of it. But I would say that is pretty much dead now. Yeah, there's nothing coming out, just air. So we've quite successfully killed that. But anyhow, what we're going to do now, I'm going to transfer the coats to hangers and hang them up in the house, and the trousers we will leave on the airer for a day, and then we'll do one more little check tomorrow with a jug of water to see how we've done. Right folks, it's been 24 hours more or less, well, about 22, something like that. It's fully dry now. There's no difference in feel, just feels like a pair of trousers. I'm not going to bother with the jackets or the top, because they are only partially sprayed with the, I'm covering the name of the stuff now, the gold, Fabsil Gold. They're only sprayed the tops. But these were what I wanted to waterproof for trousers. Now again, I've got to emphasise, these are not waterproof trousers, they're just like a cargo pants, very heavy, thick material. Recap, they've been washed in the nick wax many times, although you've only seen it once. Probably over the last 12 months they've probably been washed and re-waterproofed about 4 or 5 times. But this is the first attempt with the Fabsil. And we've got some water here and we're going to see if we've been successful. And as usual, I have no idea what's going to happen, whether this is going to bead off or soak in. So we'll put a little bit there and just leave it to see if it stays beaded or if it starts to soak in. Bear in mind, I didn't really do the top, I did sort of lower down. But that seems to be staying there and not soaking in. I don't see any colour change as yet. Oh, and that's just run straight off. Okay, so what we'll try and do, we'll try and make a little impression somewhere where the water will sit in the middle. But so far, I've got to say, nothing has soaked in there. Tiny little bit there, well, very tiny bit. We'll try a bit, this is the bit where I sort of treated it now. And we'll see if we can get it to sit there. Right, that's where we actually treated it there. And the clue will be a colour change. If it starts to go dark anywhere, then it's soaking in. But I would say that is pretty waterproof. yeah, quite pleased with that. I think we've succeeded. Give it a little poke there. You can see we're beading quite well. Look, the water's just running over the top. There's no penetration at all. Very, very small amount there. But nothing that's gonna... You got to remember, if you were wearing them, this is flat. If you were wearing them maybe vertical, the water would just be beading straight off. You wouldn't get any penetration at all, I wouldn't have thought. And we're just sitting here looking at it, and it doesn't seem to be going in at all. I would say that's pretty damn good. Look at that. We can run that around to our heart's content, look. Yep, I would say that's a success. Right, well that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope the information is useful to you. Must reiterate, everything in this video is just my own opinion and my own experiences, and whether I've done it right or wrong, that's pretty much down to me. But if you want to have a go at waterproofing your own clothing, hopefully I've showed you a couple of products. Obviously there's a lot more other products out there, but the neck wax is good for washing in. The Fab Seal is for treating on its own. But universally, if you're going to wash them, you need to get hold of soap. So you either get the tech wash, if you're only doing small amounts on an irregular basis. But if you work on the roads or forestry, whatever, you get dirty, and you want to wash your waterproofs regularly, then buy your own bottle of soap. As I've proved, it doesn't harm the waterproofing at all. Anyway, hope that's been of use to somebody at least, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.